Being a performer has been a large part of my life, but music is one of those things that you don't just perform for yourself, you share it. You just know you love doing it, so you just keep doing it and you keep looking for opportunities because you know you can do certain things. In 1988, I attempted to play by memory all the songs that I knew. This was a stunt that I thought up because when I went to school in Eastern Kentucky in the olden days, memory was a big part of learning.
She's the kind of person who never really let anything, she's never let anything get in her way. She climbs what? She climbs mountains? I think that, you put something in front of her that she thinks she can do, she'll do it. Was I confident that Squeek could do it? Absolutely. It was a slam dunk. There was not even a question about it.
It was really fun and really tiring. I loved to do it. It wasn't any problem practicing. It was one of the most fun things of my life.
Doing it was sort of like, what does that mean if she could do it? It had to be an impressive number. What was an impressive number? I think 600 would have been an impressive number. 1,000 would have been more impressive.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 5 o'clock and the Squeek World Record event is officially ended. How many songs do we have up there?
I'd get up in the morning and I'd think, what possessed me to say I would do this?
If you've met her and you know the kind of energy and the kind of musicianship she has, there's no question about it. So yeah, there was never any doubt in my mind.
People would say, how old are you anyway? I couldn't begin to do that.
When in doubt, make an ending.
So at the end of the event, I had not played all 2,200 songs and there wasn't any more time left. But I played 1,852. It has been really a great ride. It has been wonderful. Hello, I'm Squeek Steele, and this is my house in Virginia City, Nevada. But anyway, to back up, I was born in Ashland, Kentucky in 1939. Grew up there. Same house my entire growing up life until I went to college. Squeek is a nickname I gave myself when I was in first grade. I gave it to myself because my baby brother, who'd just been born, was getting more attention from the cousins and the aunts and uncles than I was when they came over to see him. And I was out in the front yard doing cartwheels and nobody paid any attention. I did a headstand and nobody even cared. And then I did a split. All of these I can still do. Nobody paid any attention, so I started to squeak, make this high-pitched squeaking noise. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And I didn't do it like 10 times or 20 times. I did it like maybe 100+ times. All of a sudden, everybody on the porch was looking at me. And I was squeaking and not stopping. My mother had a piano that she had learned on, and it was in our house. It was a 1921 Beckwith. It was a roll piano. And my father taught me when I was 3, how to thread the rolls of this piano. And then, of course, you pumped. It was before the electric pianos. And you pumped, and so I would be holding onto this ledge and just barely getting my feet to pump. And then I knew how to rewind and set them up. But in playing them, I had already been experimenting with the piano, but now I was like picking out tunes from listening to the roll piano when I was about 3. I took every opportunity I could in high school to play for anything. And when I was actually in junior high school, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I played piano at a revival in our church. There was still an organist playing, but then I would sort of play these flourishes on the piano around the hymns that were being sung. And I remember at the end of the week, I was given $10 for playing that revival because a lot of people came down and got saved when I played certain songs with the tremolo and the piano and, you know, in the right hand. And I said, I can't take this. This is the work of the Lord. My father said, take the money. You've earned it, you know. Nobody in my family ever remarked on me being exceptional in any way. Because everybody was supposed to be exceptional. So there were people that got better grades than me, but it was that way growing up in the 50s, you know. You were just supposed to, sort of like the Asian way now, strive to do your best all the time. In high school, I got, you know, accepted into the girls' sorority rather than the second girls' sorority because of my piano playing. And I played for everything. I didn't have anything special except my ear. I didn't have to, I could read music and I could hear and play it. And that was very helpful. And not everybody could do that. And because sheet music was expensive then, and there wasn't a lot of it to be had of popular music, I learned everything by ear. I'm not good enough to be a concert pianist, and my parents would never allow me to play in a bar. So I became an organ major so I could be a church organist. But one of my main jobs now is playing in a bar. So I also play the organ in the church. So on Sundays when I play church and then I go and play in the bar, I call it going from heaven to hell. My sharing began of music actually before my real performing because my parents and my piano teacher decided that there were three things I could be. I could be a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary. And they were pushing for the music teacher. I tried to give the kids the basics of musicianship, also to make it always fun or always something they look forward to. And in fact, I had a school here in Nevada called Hillside School in Story County, a very small school. And whenever they would see my car pull in, they'd be like, today is music, oh my gosh, this is so great.
Here at Hillside Elementary School, Squeek teaches music literally by getting her students involved with both feet.
Nothing is quite like having children really engaged in singing and having them playing or singing, and it's their thing. They own it. You know, you've given it to them, you've shown it to them, and now they own it.
Squeek believes that music is simply good for the soul, and she doesn't tiptoe around the fact that teaching and learning on a foot-pounding piano is unique to say the least.
You don't teach music like you teach math. You don't say, turn to page 16 and do the problems. You teach music like, I've got something to tell you, and I've got something to share with you, and it's great, and we're going to have a wonderful time. If there's a child that can be saved by music, you're there for them. And many children have been saved by music, not just by me, but by me turning them on to it and them going on to something else.
Name that tune game at the Borth Building? No. Delaware Valley pianist Squeek Moore, who for a few hours a day, for the next 3 weeks, will attempt to play 2,000 songs from memory. Choices of these musically inclined judges will be checking every note. Why? If Squeek makes it, she'll earn a key spot in the Guinness Book of World Records.
In 1988, I was out with my producer-manager who would get me gigs, Rob Zalman of Philadelphia.
From time to time, I would book her into an event as a solo pianist. And one day we had lunch. I guess it was in the summer of 1988 at a nice restaurant on South Street in Philadelphia. And she said to me,
you know what? I think I know more songs by memory than anybody in the world.
So I asked her, well, do you think you could be in the Guinness Book of Records? I said, probably.
I had memorized over the years many different songs from just playing them a lot. I just knew them.
Okay, let's get in the book. If you think you can do it, why don't you be in the Guinness Book of Records? It was sort of like a dare, but it was in good fun. It wasn't, we just were friends, and it was a nice thing to kind of come up with.
My job in this production was to write down every song I thought I knew, every piece of music I thought I knew.
We needed to have more songs than she would play because, for one thing, what if she couldn't play a song we asked? And for another thing is, if we had the time to play more than a certain number of songs, we better have more than that as a reservoir, as a repertoire of songs for her.
So I took all my books and I laid them out, and I, would say, well, I know this, but I can't remember what the middle is. But then I would go through it, and I ended up writing down 2,200 songs at the time, which Rob then put into books. It was one of the first computers. He made several copies, and he typed them all into books like this. They're color-coded to represent different types: classical, religious, ethnic, pop.
If she knew 2,200 songs from memory, and we had enough time to do it, obviously she could play them. Because I knew she knew 2,200 songs from memory. I had no question in my mind. The phone conversation to Guinness, well, I asked if they had that particular category, and if we could produce an event that fulfilled what we were thinking of doing, would they be interested in it? I had to describe that it was a feat of memory rather than a marathon. It wasn't endurance. In other words, it would be a finite period of time.
This was a 3-week event where I played 3 to 5 hours every day except Monday.
And they were all for it. They were very much in favor of that, and gave me some guidelines, which we followed because we obviously wanted to be in the book.
The next thing he had to do was to find a venue, and we ended up doing it in the historic, beautiful financial exchange in Philadelphia from the 19th century called the Bourse Building.
And it had been recently renovated. So there were a lot of shops. It was basically a grand old building with lots of shops around the perimeter, and this big open space that must have gone up 3 or 4 floors in the center. In order to provide the space, it needed to be for a cause. So we found a worthy organization, I guess a 501c3 nonprofit, and that was the Gray Panthers.
Keep in mind, there's only about 150 songs that she hasn't played in the book. So this gives you almost 2,000 songs to choose from for only $10.
You make a donation to the Gray Panthers, then you go over to the judge's desk and you say that you show your valid donation slip or whatever it is, and then you say, I'd like to request that tune. And I'm not sure if they would get on mic to do that, or if the judges would do it on their behalf, but she would play requests.
Squeek, we have a request for your grand old flag. Would you like some drum accompaniment for that?
Sure. The audience has to sing. Let's make it low enough so you can sing.
They were definitely a good group to work with, and all the money we would raise in the event would go to them.
And then he had to find judges, and they had to be people who knew the song. I mean, because I might cheat, but I wasn't going to cheat.
Before we could get judges, we needed to create the parameters for the event. To qualify for being a judge, they had to know a lot of songs, but they didn't have to know all the songs. Only Squeek knew all the songs. So they only had to know a segment of songs.
Hymn City, Lynn says. Terry, have you? Well, you're going to take care of initially, but do you have more?
The judges then would call it and then sign their initials and the date that I played it perfectly. There were a few songs that I could not remember when they were called, I couldn't remember the middle part. and I knew I couldn't remember it.
I mean, it's... Where is that come from? No, that's not it. That's Prisoner of Love. No, it is.
So I'd ask if I could defer that, and then I would do it later. And he got me a nice grand piano.
And they were called Cunningham pianos. And so I went there and told them that we were doing this event for the Gray Panthers, and would they be willing to donate the use of a piano.
Also at this time, I thought it's going to be kind of boring for some of these songs for people to sit in the chairs and watch an old lady play through all the songs she thinks she knows. So maybe it would be fun if I could borrow a walking piano. Well, the maker of that, Ramos Araceni, lived in Philadelphia, and I thought he makes a smaller version that he was selling to families and schools and whatever then. And so we borrowed one of those pianos. Now, the walking piano was featured in 1988 in the summer. A movie came out called Big, starring Tom Hanks. I would take a 5-minute break every hour, just 5 minutes. But when I would come back from the break, I would get on that walking piano and play Happy Birthday. After all, I'm playing it from memory, even if it's with my feet, right? Or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
So I was the producer and figured out how all the systems had to be placed in order to actually pull it off. And we did it.
The first morning, I was very apprehensive about what was going to happen that day and how I was going to pull it off. But actually, the early days were the easy days because people picked things they knew. After I'd finish every day, I'd have this moment of like elation, just being really high from getting this over with for the, that day. And then about 10 minutes later, I'd be like, I got to do this again tomorrow, I would really have loved to have done it 12 hours a day for like 4 days and got it over with. The way we showed people what number of songs I had played was my producer had constructed just a board with wheels.
Knowing me, as I do, I probably had to come up with all the things the scoreboard needed to tell us. And then how could we achieve that mechanically? Because this was way before digital technology.
There were 4 wheels. I guess he expected I was going to play 2,300.
One for thousands and hundreds and tens, and then 0 through 9.
After I would play each song, then one of the judges would go up, or maybe an assistant, and put the number to the next, digit.
It's called Just Because You Make Them Goo-Goo Eyes. La 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 la. And it goes.
What I felt after 3 weeks or 4 weeks of preparing for this, I felt like my head was huge. I mean, nobody ever asked about the physical part of this. They always ask about the memory part, the brain part. But it felt like I had stored so much information, or restored all that information from all those years, that my brain was going to burst.
Occasionally, she would have to take an extra minute to think about, like she'd have to, what we call audiate. In her mind, she'd have to kind of construct the song so that in her inner ear, she would think about it. And then she'd go, okay, and now what key is it in? And of course, if you can play a song in any key, that's helpful, because if she didn't happen to remember the key it was in, then she was kind of stuck. But she did. And I think it helped that she had somewhat of a photographic memory, and so she probably, dialed up that particular manuscript of that song and looked at the key signature in her mind's eye and said, oh, I must be in the key of B flats. And then she played it in the key of B flat.
I would have your natural anxiety and apprehensiveness, but also a lot of times when I'm going to play, I'm nervous, but I'm not nervous like, oh my God. I'm more nervous like, I can't wait to do this. It's going to be great. I know I'll be fine.
As long as it was going to be fun and be entertaining and benefit the Great Panthers, then we were going to do it.
Here it comes, whether you like it or not.
So the whole idea of being able to do a band, she sometimes played in bands. Usually if she played with anybody, it would just be with a drummer.
I was just thinking about sometimes when they would call a song, I would remember the beginning, I would remember the end, but I couldn't remember the middle.
Yet another one that I know, the beginning and not the bridge.
But the amazing thing about your memory is that you start out playing, and as you play, it's like linear, and you get to this, you think, I'm going to get to the middle part and I'll wipe out completely, I'll crash and burn. And you don't. You get there, and all of a sudden, that memory kicks in. Occasionally a person would ask for a song, or a bunch of kids would ask for a song, and I would ask them if they knew it, if they wanted to sing it, and then I'd accompany, because I was still playing the music, and it would still count as one of my memory events.
We decided the finale of the event would be myself playing drums and a saxophonist, Jeff Sidler.
And so the very final song of my Guinness World Record is I've Had the Time of My Life.
I dove right in and played drums for it and tried to stay under the volume of the piano and the saxophone.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 5 o'clock and the Squeek World Record event is officially ended. How many songs do we have up there? 1,852 songs. 1852.
When the clock struck 5, we were done. And that last song was it, and it was 1,852.
I just remember people coming up and congratulating me, but we didn't know if I was going to be accepted into the Guinness Book, because when you make a proposal and they say, no, we don't have anybody who's done that, but we would honor it.
Yeah, we had to basically assemble all the documentation that would verify that she indeed did this task of playing 1,852 songs.
My producer had to send a concluding report that shows photos, has the bio of every judge, has the person who notarized it, all the particular information that Guinness requires.
From start to finish, how we assembled it, how we got a hold of the judges, and then there were forms that the judges had to fill out that verified that they were in some kind of a position to say, yes, we know that that's a true song. And then we also verified the documentation for the piano and for the bourse and the people who ran the bourse. There were songbooks that had to be initialed, and so we had to send an entire songbook, had the 1,852 songs throughout the book. That was sent in its entirety.
This certificate does not necessarily denote an entry into the Guinness Book of Records, but it was put in the 1990 book. I did the record in 1988, but it was already too late for the 1989 book, so it went into the 1990 book on page 18, hardcover, European and American edition, and page 22 in the paperback edition. It's not under music, it's not in music, it's in physiology under memory. I like to say it's in the segment between the largest liver and the smallest waist, which is true if you look at the pages.
The Squeek More World Record event on the Guinness Book showed me that I was able to do something like that. If anything, the biggest thing that it did for me was give me the knowledge that I could take an idea and make it work all the way through. Even though she was the onstage version of a part of the partnership, it was a real pleasure to do it, especially since it was something that served her well, and she was somebody that she deserved that. She was a good person. She is a good person, and I like the idea that I kind of helped her do that. It was not exactly a money-making venture. It was definitely a labor of love.
I had just finished playing the Guinness Book of World Records. Roger said, we should go to Virginia City. So we came up here. It was cold and kind of snowy. And we stopped and went into one of the bars, because there were many bars. And there was a piano. And so while they were bringing our drinks, I said, could I play the piano? After I played for about 10 minutes, they said, your drinks are free. So then we went to another bar, and the same thing happened. And then we went to a third bar. And by this time, we're thinking, definitely we're going to be staying over, but by the fourth bar, we couldn't remember where we parked the car. We came here in 1990. Roger said, I know you're a fantastic piano player because I've seen you play in Jackson Hole and whatever. We should make an album. We could go around to these saloons that have the pianos and make an album. We decided to make a tape called Keyboards on the Comstock. I ended up teaching in the school district here. I also ended up playing for 25 years at the historic Gold Hill Hotel. And my most favorite job is playing at the Bucket of Blood Saloon. This is my friend and musician, Gary Greenland. Plays banjo. We've played here at the Bucket of Blood for 25 years, and we played at ragtime festivals. So we simply threw caution to the wind and moved here, not knowing exactly what we were going to do, but figuring we got a lot of skills, we can do something. This house was built in 1878. We tried to have everything in the house be before 1939, and then we could be the youngest things in the house. Welcome to my music room. This is where I teach my students, where I do all my practicing, where I keep all of my music, and where I get my ideas for my compositions. It's a place to go for if I'm feeling like kind of sad. It's a place to go when I'm feeling happy. It's a place that I spend a lot of time putting together my programs, learning new music. This town has been so fun to live in. I know so many people here. I love the history of it. So I have a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire, hands in the pot of music. My father used to have a saying, and I guess this sort of sums it up, what you think about expands into action. So things that I've dreamed of doing are going to expand into action at some point, and I'll be getting input from many other sources, and I can't wait to see. It's going to be a great life.
In the pot to see what have you got? Grab your best gal, invite another pal. Everybody's welcome, yeah. Come along to Andy Skinner's chicken dinner. The pickle picks a wishbone will be the lucky winner of a brand new pair of homespun panties. No other spinner feet.